Up next, classroom controversy, a dispute at Texas A&M University over a children's literature course, and the use of gender identity has made national headlines and led to a professor being fired. Lawmakers on opposing sides of this issue discuss what they want to see happen next. Speaking out, Texas leaders condemn conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination. What they say they should happen going forward. And expanding primary, we speak with State Representative James Talarico about jumping into the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate, and former Dallas Congressman Colin Allred about why they believe they're best suited to go up against the Republican nominee. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas starts now. Good morning and welcome to Eye on Politics. We begin with the news that shattered much of the nation, the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Texas leaders are among those speaking out and condemning what happened. An assailant shot and killed Kirk while he was speaking with college students, as he often did. It happened at Utah Valley University Wednesday in Orem, which is about 40 miles south of Salt Lake City. On Friday, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson was arrested and named as the suspect. Kirk was the founder of Turning Point USA, which he turned into a conservative powerhouse that attracted tens of thousands of young people at college campuses across the country. He welcomed all to debate him about the issues. Kirk was 31 and left behind his wife and 2 young children.
It was an absolute punch in the gut. It was simultaneously heartbreaking and infuriating, especially to those of us who are in very similar battles across the country to save the hearts, minds, and souls of the younger generations.
When you can't go out and have a conversation with college kids on a campus and talk about your ideas without being afraid of some madman with a gun shooting you, then we all lose something. And so I think we have to have not only universal condemnation, which I'm glad we've seen, but then also a commitment from there to try and use this as a moment, an inflection point, to pull back from this brink.
Charlie was very good at taking his message to young people. And I think that from the constitutional conservative aspect, that was something that was missing, to inspire young people, to create that movement among young people, and also to go and, willingly and willfully challenge and ask for the open debate.
This is not something that any family needs to experience. And I think that is exactly why me and my colleagues have been advocating to tone down this political rhetoric that we are seeing in this country, because if history is any teacher, we've seen how this rhetoric turns into violence, and this is just another example of that.
Governor Greg Abbott ordered all U.S. and Texas flags at state government buildings to be lowered to half-staff and remain there until sunset today. Now to a growing controversy at Texas A&M University that has made national headlines. The dispute began after a student challenged a professor who discussed gender identity as part of a class on children's literature. Republican State Representative Brian Harrison has sharply criticized the university and how it's handled the situation on X. He has posted videos the students secretly recorded in the children's literature class. At first, University President Mark Welsh removed the dean and department head from their administrative positions because the course content was not consistent with what was published in the course catalog's description. On X, Governor Abbott said, quote, "Good, now fire the professor who acted contrary to Texas law." Welsh then fired the professor, Melissa McCool, who has appealed her termination and hired an attorney, saying she was never told to change her course content. The governor announced the professor's firing on X. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick also weighed in on X, criticizing the university president, saying most parents, students, and alumni expect Texas A&M to reflect the values of the state and nation. Quote, "If President Welsh will not or cannot reflect those values, then change needs to happen." The Texas A&M University System Chancellor Glenn Hager issued a statement on X saying, quote, "I commend President Welsh on the action he has taken to terminate a faculty member." We spoke with Representative Harrison about this issue.
And I got to tell you, and commend this student who I have spoken to recently, to commend her and her courage. Who had the foresight to video this professor forcing the students to memorize, and I'm not making this up, the gender unicorn, which is something that propagandizes extreme transgender ideology, not just to record that, but to secretly record her engagements with the president of Texas A&M University, a former Barack Obama appointee, and somebody for which she was in a significant power imbalance, to be able to maintain the poise and professionalism, even when the president of the Texas A&M University was berating her.
And nowhere in the course description was there anything about gender identity being discussed as part of the curriculum.
That's
right?
what the university is hanging its hat on. It's unclear to me if that's true, because I've read the syllabus. I have the entire syllabus. The student told the president of Texas A&M University, she used the word discrimination. She told him almost a month ago that she had been discriminated against, which is a violation of her constitutional rights. And the president of the university made it out to be her problem. He mocked her and literally said, "What do you want me to do, fire her?" And when she said yes, he dismissed her and said, "Well, that's not happening."
And why do you think that this was a violation of the student's constitutional rights?
She was discriminated against on the basis of her conservative beliefs, and her First Amendment free speech rights were absolutely violated. She was singled out of in this class for public humiliation. She was ejected from the classroom. She was ordered to leave by the government officials. This wasn't a private actor. This was the government and official acting on behalf of the government of the state of Texas, ejected her from a class and told her she was not welcome to return. In order to protect the professor and keep the indoctrination going, they tried to convince the student to never go back to the class. And if she just would never go back, they would give her an arbitrary grade that she could have for the course, denying her the education that she had paid for, and allowing Texas A&M to sweep this whole problem under the rug.
The governor said the professor violated Texas law, but Senate Bill 17, signed into law in 2023, does not apply to academic course instruction, scholarly research, or activities by student organizations registered with universities and colleges. We asked Representative Harrison about that.
Not only does SB 17 not ban all DEI in public universities in the state of Texas, SB 17 explicitly authorizes, it explicitly sanctions taxpayer-funded DEI in every classroom, in every public university in the state of Texas, including anything that could even possibly be construed to be in the furtherance of any kind of academic goal or research goal or curriculum or instructions. All of that has not only not been banned by Texas law, Texas law has sanctioned it.
So the university didn't do anything wrong then, did it?
Well, the university did a lot wrong. The university is governed by a president. The president has a boss who's called a chancellor, and the chancellor has bosses who are called regents. Every regent is appointed by the governor of the state of Texas. They are his political appointees. And let me tell you something. To you regents, okay, you leaders in any public university in the state of Texas, you don't need the legislature to tell you to not spend my constituents' hard-earned money to indoctrinate the next generation. So they did something that is wrong, immoral, and unethical.
We also spoke with Democratic State Representative Venton Jones of Dallas, a member of the legislature's LGBTQ caucus, who pushed back.
It's disappointing once again that we are here navigating a conversation about Texas A&M, my alma mater, and perpetuating a conservative political agenda in our public institutions. And so this is yet another example of that taking place, to where this did not come from just the campus community. We had a lawmaker implementing a political agenda to be able to get this individual fired. They did not break any laws. How many of our academic institutions and the individuals there to coming to teach and to learn there have to be attacked just to perpetuate a conservative political agenda and indoctrination? I think the student had an opportunity to voice their opposition, and that's exactly what they did. And the faculty had an opportunity to say and said that they were exercising their rights to academic freedom. But once you become a disruption to class, anyone should be removed from the class for that reason. The only law that's in place is the removal of departments of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is also ridiculous. But there were concerns that were expressed on the House floor by many members, including myself, that this would happen, that there would never be enough.
On this video, you hear the student challenging the professor, and she said, you know, this violates President Trump's executive order about just two genders, you know, the topic of the curriculum of the class that the professor was bringing up. What do you say to that?
Well, the president has the ability to express and create any executive order that they choose to implement. What's happening with this is that this executive order is being used to perpetuate hatred. Based on the executive order, what prevents this professor from being able to raise issues up regarding LGBTQ individuals in their coursework? And so what I see is an ongoing attack to remove the very presence of LGBTQ people everywhere in our state, in our bathrooms, in our schools, and to just disappear in silence. And that is absolutely unacceptable, because when I look at my experiences at Texas A&M, I experienced things from every spectrum, and that's what really gave me a full rounded education. I would be fearful right now to go to Texas A&M. I would not send my children to Texas A&M University, and many Texans have expressed that concern, not only with Texas A&M University, but with all of our state schools.
You've written a letter to the president of Texas A&M University, and you have other Democratic lawmakers sign this. What's your message to the president?
I think that the president must have messaging that's not just from conservative members, and I'm not doing this for political reasons. I'm doing this as a former student of Texas A&M University who continues during my legislative tenure to see attacks on that very university.
We have requested an interview with both the university president, Mark Welsh, and with the university system chancellor, Glenn Hager. Texas A&M University and all of its universities in the system will now conduct audits of all of their course offerings. Up next, the Democratic primary in the U.S. Senate race is expanding. We'll speak with both James Talarico and Colin Allred about their campaigns when Eye on Politics returns. The Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate seat in Texas is intensifying. After months of speculation, State Representative James Talarico of Austin entered the race. Talarico joins former Dallas Congressman Colin Allred and retired NASA astronaut Terry Virts. He says billionaires have too much power and influence on politics and policy, and he accuses them of dividing the country. We spoke with Talarico hours after he announced his campaign on Tuesday.
Well, I just firmly believe that all 30 million Texans deserve a U.S. Senator who's going to represent their interests, not the interests of billionaire megadonors. And right now, on the other side of the aisle, we've got Ken Paxton and John Cornyn competing to be the next U.S. Senator from Texas, both of whom have proven to be deeply corrupt and willing to sell out Texans to enrich their own donors.
What are the biggest problems you believe are facing the country, and what are your solutions?
Yeah, so in that big ugly bill, they gutted our health care, they defunded schools, and they did all of that to cut taxes for their donors. So when you're doing the people's business instead of your donors' business, you fight for things like I've fought for at the state capitol, lowering the cost of prescription drugs. I passed the first ever cap on insulin copays in the state of Texas. I passed a major bill to bring down the costs of childcare across Texas. And most recently, I passed a bill that's going to get rid of some of the outdated regulations so that we can bring down housing costs in our state. So if you have elected officials who are fighting for the people and not their donors, you end up getting good public policy that's going to lower costs, grow the economy, and allow people to fulfill their God-given potential.
With regards to billionaires, who are you talking about specifically? And does that include George Soros? Because Republicans often throw out his name, often criticize him, and Soros is working with the Texas Democratic Party to help them raise money. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I have denounced billionaire influence in both political parties. I am out here calling out billionaire megadonors regardless of what side of the aisle they're on, because they have way too much influence in our politics. Not that they don't deserve a seat at the table. I do think billionaires deserve a seat, but they don't deserve every seat. And right now they own all the seats at the table. And there's not enough room for regular Texans, for teachers and nurses and firefighters and police officers and workers to have a seat at the table too.
And let me ask you, as far as fundraising is concerned, so you're not going to accept any money from super PACs, from billionaires? How is that going to work?
So right now, I'm the only member of the Texas legislature that has never accepted a dime of corporate PAC money. And that's not easy to do. You know, I've had to send back checks from Walmart and from Chevron and AT&T. I still talk to those business leaders. Like I said, they deserve a seat at the table, but I've put a self-imposed ban on accepting their contributions just to make sure there's a limit on their influence and on their power in my legislative office. I'm going to be continuing that policy for the Senate campaign. So I won't be accepting any corporate PAC money in this race, but that means that I'm going to rely on the people to fund this campaign.
Talarico announced he raised $1 million during the first 12 hours of his campaign. Former Dallas Congressman Colin Allred entered the race July 1st, and he's been campaigning across the state ever since. He recently unveiled a main platform to take corruption out of politics, and we asked him about it on Thursday.
The commitments that I've made to folks, which is that I've never taken a dime of corporate PAC money, and I won't, that I never traded stocks and believe that we should ban every member of Congress from trading stocks. In my opinion, they have insider information, and it's outrageous that they do. You should know why someone is doing what they're doing and whose interest they're doing it in. And when you're trading stocks at the same time, I don't think that's possible. But I also think we have to look at some of the things that are broken in the Congress that have led it to be, I think, really the least productive and the least responsive to the American people that we've seen in modern history, including gerrymandering. We've seen that here in Texas with this stealing, really, of seats here, just blatantly saying, we're just going to do it. You can't stop us. Well, it's possible for us to ban that, and I want to do that. I want to see every state have nonpartisan commissions that draw the districts in every state. Let's get away from this idea of politicians picking their voters. Let's go back to what everybody knows we should do, which is voters picking who represents them.
So that's right? A law that Congress has to pass.
We can pass that as a law in Congress applying to congressional districts. I also think
to congressional districts,
right? Not
to state.
Yeah, and, listen, there's some constitutional debate around that,
yeah.
And I think that every state should adopt that policy as well. But I know that we're on very firm footing with the Congress. And I also think that the Senate is broken, and that we've seen the filibuster become something that was, for most of our history, used rarely and sparingly, to be something that's applied in every single case. And I think that's actually reduced bipartisan cooperation, because everything's going to be subject to the filibuster. And so those are two steps that I think we have to do to fix the Congress. But when it comes to ethics, I think we have to look at this as a period where we, on the backside of this, we have to pass an entire raft of ethics laws, and that's what I included in the package as well.
So how does unrigging the economy in your plan actually lead to lowering costs for people?
When I think about lowering costs, I think about the areas where I know that we can help working people. To me, that's housing, that's child care and elder care, that's health care, that's the cost of education. These are all areas where I know we can have concrete steps, and I have concrete plans for what we can do to lower folks' costs and to give them a chance to get ahead. Right? But what we see often is that special interests will swoop in, that the corruption of our current system that I think allows for them to basically purchase votes in the Congress to influence it. And so in order to fully address and to fully unrig what I consider to be a rigged economy, we also at the same time unrig our democracy. And so I think they go hand in hand. And to me, it's all about putting power back in the hands of the people and having a more responsive government, one that is their top interest is what's in your interest, not in their own pocketbook, not in some special interest pocketbook. That's where we are right now, and I've had enough of it.
Former El Paso Congressman Beto O'Rourke and current Congressman Joaquin Castro of San Antonio are still considering a run for Senate. Coming up, Governor Abbott takes action on THC after Republican leaders failed to strike a deal on the legislation. When Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas comes right back. After Texas Republican leaders failed to reach a deal on THC products, Governor Greg Abbott took action on his own. He issued an executive order that bans hemp products for those younger than 21 and regulates them for adults. Sarah Jenkins explains what this means in this week's brief.
On Wednesday, Governor Abbott issued an executive order banning the sale of any hemp-derived THC products to people under the age of 21. The order also increases enforcement and mandates that the State Department of Health Services review its rules around hemp products, things like testing and labeling, and increasing licensing fees. This issue was a hot button for state leaders this year. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick pushed hard for a full ban of all THC products, but lawmakers ultimately failed to find a middle ground. Governor Abbott says his new rules will protect children while still respecting the liberties of responsible adults. For The Brief, I'm Sarah Jenkins.
Thank you, Sarah. And remember, you can watch the full interviews from everyone on our show today on our CBS Texas YouTube page. And when you're there, please hit the subscribe button. That's all for Eye on Politics this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. I'll see you next week. And from all of us here, have a great Sunday.